tensions escalate between police officers. Prime Minister sets up task force to deal with rogue policemen. And First Lady Linda Babao to represent PNG in the United States.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
Hello and welcome. This is Wednesday's news. The wife of Prime Minister Peter O'Neill will represent PNG in a significant and historical luncheon in Denver, Colorado. Linda Babao will feature as a guest speaker in the Project Cure First Ladies Luncheon next month. She will become the first wife of a Papua New Guinean Prime Minister to attend this gathering with other First Ladies from other countries.
The Project Cure First Ladies Luncheon is an annual fundraising event that features First Ladies from around the world. This year's function is expected to raise global awareness on healthcare needs. It will also be more focused on supporting the delivery of life-saving medical supplies to hospitals, healthcare facilities, and medical professionals and patients in the nation.
We work with the National Department of Health and Minister Malabag, and in line with our agreement, we don't bring pharmaceuticals. So we bring the type of equipments that are often missing and supplies that are often missing from our health centers and aid posts throughout the country.
With the financial support from PNG Travel Foundation and ExxonMobil, Ms. Babao will be working in partnership with the Health Department to achieve this aim.
I'm so thankful to ExxonMobil, who has made this trip possible by generously funding the event.
The aim of the First Ladies meeting falls in line with two areas where ExxonMobil has been investing in.
This particular initiative ticks two of those boxes. Certainly it ticks the healthcare box and it ticks the women's empowerment box. To have our First Lady represent the country in an international forum such as this is a real first, I believe, for Papua New Guinea. And I think it's something, again, where our First Lady will really be a significant role model for other women in Papua New Guinea.
Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill today launched the Prime Minister's Excellence Awards at Parliament State Function Room. In his address, Mr. O'Neill said PMEA is an annual award program designed to appreciate individuals or organizations that stand out in providing basic services under trying circumstances.
Cabinet ministers, provincial governors, members of parliament and individuals from both the public and private sector attended the launching today after parliament session. The sole purpose of the Prime Minister's Excellence Awards PMEA is to embrace the good work of those who put endless effort to improve services all around the country, from central agencies down to sub-national levels. Before the launching, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill said it's not necessarily handing out monetary value to hard-working Papua New Guineans, but it's government's appreciation of acknowledging innovative and creative approaches.
And what I see in those remote communities are champions that we don't see every day. We interact with each other here in Port Moresby and Waigani, but we forget that there are also others in our communities at the larger, wider sections of the country that continue to work every day, trying their best to make our communities better, improve the living standards of our people.
There are 5 awards under 2 categories: Service Innovation, Tackling Poverty, the Young Leader Award, Leadership Award, and the Public Value Award. Under these, both organizations and individuals will be awarded following a set criteria.
It is about recognition of their effort.
Application forms for nominations are now open with a rigorous selection process to be applied. The awards night will take place on September 15, 2015, prior to PNG's 40th independence celebrations. Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
The Papua New Guinea Defence Force's capability to provide security for upcoming international events has been reaffirmed. Commander PNGDF Brigadier General Gilbert Toropo is confident that his men will deliver. A joint military exercise with the Australian Defence Force has helped boost their confidence.
These are some of the men who will be in the forefront to provide professional security during major international events like the Pacific Games and the 2018 APEC Leaders Summit. They have been in training for the last 4 weeks with their Australian counterparts. The program is crucial in building their confidence and skills to face upcoming security challenges. Commander PNGDF Brigadier General Gilbert Toropo has no doubt about his men.
Counter Korea has always been an bilateral exercise conducted between ADF and the PNG Defence Force and head of the Australian Defence Staff. Now I want to thank that at least this exercise has shaped towards practicing our men on some of the real-time events that we will practice in the years ahead. That's in front of us.
Next year's Pacific Games will test whether the PNGDF is ready to provide high-level security. Although assistance will come from its counterparts, Toropo wants his soldiers to build their professionalism. He says the capacity of the PNGDF to provide security at all levels has been in question, but it is gradually improving. The soldiers in training have learned new skills from their counterparts and are grateful to the Australian Defence Force.
I'm so confident that we are heading towards a better level to face events coming our way like the APEC meeting, 2017 election and the Pacific Games next year.
For me personally as a soldier, I've learned so much, especially on urban combat, urban warfare, basically vehicle checkpoints, urban drills, how to enter into buildings. For us Papua New Guinea soldiers, we've learned so much from the Australians.
I feel confident that they'll do a real good job at the Pacific Games. We've learned a lot from them during the survival phase, teaching us how to survive in the jungle.
Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
Parliament resumed its second day today for the October sitting with a minute's silence to the passing away of former Australian Prime Minister Edward Gough Whitlam. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, East Sepik Governor Sir Michael Somare and Western Highlands Governor Pius Winty shared their condolences to the families of the late Whitlam before question time. The leaders said the former Australian Prime Minister was a visionary leader in the region who fought for free education, free health services and rights of Indigenous people.
Gough Whitlam has left a lasting legacy that lives and breathes in the corridors of our nation. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Now you are standing here, proud people of your country. You are lucky to have Gough Whitlam behind us, to push us to make sure that this is what happened to Papua New Guinea.
Today, I want to join our Prime Minister and the Grand Chief and pay my respects and pay the respects of this country. He was one of the finest leaders we have in this region.
The country's largest and leading superannuation fund, Number One Super, opened its new service centre in Port Moresby yesterday. The new centre will see a fast and modern approach to serving NSL members with state-of-the-art technology. Bank of PNG Governor Lloyd Bakani was present to officiate with the ribbon cutting.
Number One Super, formerly known as POSF, is a growing superannuation fund saving both the public and private sector with a net asset base of 4.7 billion and growing. The relocation and opening of its new Port Moresby Service Centre from downtown to Waiganis ALP Centre will see a new era for the entity to serve its customers.
The board strategy with management has been to implement a process of engagement, better engagement with our members so we can serve them better. Not only when they retire, but also in the period leading up to their retirement.
The new service centre will see NSL members get more service in a short space of time, including processing of applications, updating of member details and general enquiries.
And we deployed this latest VoIP technology. So it's a multi-play. We are transmitting both voice, data, video conferencing signals on the same link back to the head office.
Before cutting the ribbon to open the centre, Bank of PNG Governor Lloyd Bakani said the institution has proven to be a vehicle as it adopts innovative delivery channels and products for Papua New Guineans.
We are all contributors of these long-term funds, super funds. It makes it easy by having access. It minimizes the cost, inconvenience for us to travel to access these services.
Governor Bakani then joined Mr. Smith to cut the ribbons to signify the operation of the center. All members are encouraged to use the new service center. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
And ahead in the news, tensions in the police force escalate. Also, Prime Minister sets up task force to deal with rogue police, and opposition blames Peter O'Neill for the unrest. Stay tuned for the details. Police officers stormed the office of the National Fraud Anti-Corruption Directorate, demanding the arrest of police officers involved in the arrest of lawyer Sam Bonner 3 months ago. Director of the National Fraud and Anti-Corruption Directorate, Matthew Damaru, said the police officers were after members of the Fraud Anti-Corruption Directorate, whom lawyer Sam Bonner claimed assaulted him after he refused arrest.
The office of the National Fraud Anti-Corruption Directorate was placed under house arrest this morning by police officers, demanding the arrest of members of the fraud squad who assaulted lawyer Sam Bonner 3 months ago. Director Matthew Damaru said his officers acted under the law to arrest Mr. Bonner, however he resisted, which led to his alleged assault.
Sam Bonner, unfortunately, didn't want to come, just obey the officers to come to. He resisted. He fought back. He tried to run away, tried to escape. So the officers said have to use reasonable force as allowed for under the Arrest Act.
Meanwhile, Mr. Bonner told EMTV News this afternoon that he only refused arrest because there was no proper warrant of arrest against him. Detective Damaru said Mr. Bonner is also charged with resisting arrest.
He has also been charged with resisting arrest. So this matter is still pending before the court.
Damaru described the actions of police officers this morning as disgraceful to the Office of the Fraud and Anti-Corruption. He said the officers involved with Mr. Bonner's arrest were released for questioning after the commotion ended.
It was really disgraceful. They treated this office like they were after criminals.
Detective Damaru said what happened this morning also relates to the assault of Detective Primengo on Sunday and the contempt charges against senior police officers.
This goes back to what happened on Sunday night. It came on yesterday's news that one of our officers was almost murdered.
Stanley Oved Jr., National EMTV News.
In this morning's Parliament session, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill ordered a full-scale investigation to address the recent increase in the number of police brutality cases and the disunity among members of the police force. Mr. O'Neill said a task force team will be set up to investigate the actions of rogue policemen and police-related matters. These include disharmony between factions of the police force.
The concern regarding police actions was brought on the floor of Parliament by the member for Kundiawa Gambog, Toby Skulang. He wanted Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to do something. With the matter on the warrant of arrest for the Prime Minister before the courts, Mr. O'Neill has directed the police minister to discipline his men and also set up the task force team.
I have asked the police minister to take control of the situation in the police force, to try and stabilize the leadership of the police force. And one of the areas that we need to strengthen is, Mr. Speaker, internal affairs of the police force, where police discipline and police issues about brutality and all the other matters need to be investigated properly and, of course, dealt with properly.
Mr. O'Neill said the government will also improve and increase the number of police training facilities to recruit policemen with better habits. In recent times, the actions of policemen have been closely scrutinized and criticized by the public. Francis Essie, a lecturer at UPNG, was almost pronounced brain dead after a beating at the hands of police and is gradually recovering after being brutally attacked by policemen. While in another incident, senior investigator Patrick Premenga and his family were put under house arrest by heavily armed policemen at Games Village in the nation's capital.
Mila Pilok, Metsup, Metropolitan Superintendent, Mr. Pero must try to control him, Lord Policeman, because it's going out of hand.
Mr. O'Neill has tasked the task force team to investigate these issues and others. Bridget Komatap, National EMTV News.
Opposition leaders held a news conference afterwards to elaborate on what they say is the root cause of police instability and disharmony. The opposition blamed Prime Minister Peter O'Neill for instigating the disharmony among members of the police force. They disagreed with the setup of the task force, as they say Mr. O'Neill is at the center of this matter and his actions would be considered as conflict of interest.
The three-man opposition led by leader Belden Nama said what the country was experiencing today in the police force was the result of Prime Minister's stubbornness to adhere to the normal court process. They want Mr. O'Neill to surrender.
There has been continuous perversion of the course of justice, continuous contempt of the orders of the court. We are all subject to the same law. Be it the Prime Minister, the opposition leader, the Governor General, the Minister of State, everyone is subject to the same law. What we have done now, because of our actions as leaders of this country, we have dragged the police force into the mud.
Investigating officers, that should any of your police officers or your family get injured in the course or lose your lives, we all, the people of Papua New Guinea and also the opposition, we will hold the Prime Minister, and we should hold the Prime Minister responsible, because Prime Minister has allowed this to happen.
And as the leader of the opposition and deputy leader of the opposition have rightly said, unless the situation is dismantled, it could explode.
They called on the police hierarchy to address the standoff between the two police factions immediately. Although Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has committed to set up the task force to investigate the actions of policemen, the opposition feels that Mr. O'Neill shouldn't take charge of this, as they say he is at the center of this issue.
To all Papua New Guineans, that what the Prime Minister is saying is that he will set up the task force team to suppress those officers who are now trying to serve him a warrant of arrest. We all should understand that Prime Minister is in the center of all these activities. Prime Minister shouldn't be mingling, Prime Minister shouldn't be touching, and Prime Minister shouldn't be directing the police force in creating any new forces or directing police to take actions against the members of the fraud squad.
The opposition also reminded members of the discipline force that they swore an oath to serve the country and uphold the Constitution. Therefore, they must think about their actions.
They are perpetrators of the law. If people have breached the law, that's where their job is. Not to protect the perpetrators of the law.
Bridget Komatap, National EMTV News.
In response, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill's office told EMTV News that the opposition is issuing what the PM describes as inflammatory statements designed to create destabilization on matters that are before the court. Mr. O'Neill said court orders specifically restrain unnecessary enforcement on orders which the court has yet to determine, saying the police creating disturbances are people motivated by persons like the opposition leader through encouragement inducement with inflammatory statements. He said the opposition leader should keep politics out of the police force and confine his politics to the floor of Parliament. A group known as the People's Power Movement will stage a peaceful protest tomorrow against the rise in police brutality cases in the country. PPM leader and activist Noel Anjo said the petition will be presented to the national government and police hierarchy to remove rogue police officers abusing ordinary citizens. The peaceful march will begin at the Unagi Oval with a walk to the National Library Oval to meet leaders and present the petition. The march will be Mr. Anjo's first after receiving court orders of no police interference in carrying out such protests. And now we take a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.397 in the interbank market And at Bank South Pacific, the kina was buying $0.3895 US dollars, $0.4393 Australian dollars, $0.2982 euro, and 41.21 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, coffee closed higher, gold and cocoa closed lower, and copper closed the day unchanged. Copper closed higher, crude oil closed lower, and palm oil closed the day unchanged. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 215 points higher, the ASX closed at 73 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 48 points higher. You're watching National EMTV News tonight. We'll bring you our headlines from Lae after the break. Economic activities in the build-up to the PNG Games, high rentals for accommodation, and lands officer sacked for illegal deals. Stay with us. Welcome back. Lae City is expected to see a drastic boost in its economy during the 6th BSP PNG Games in 24 days. Whilst corporations have packaged marketing deals worth in the millions of kina, smaller SMEs are expected to rent stalls built at the main venues. It's understood that as athletes and visitors come to Lae, cash flow in the city during the Games will rise and more money will circulate in the province.
In 25 days, Lae's Markham Road is going to be one of the busiest roads during the PNG Games. This morning, workers contracted to the Lae City Council were building stalls that are going to be selling points for SMEs. Corporate sponsorship deals packaged to sell the biannual event has already accumulated millions of kina.
One time, Lae City, people walk hard through, walk around the clock, there's a time. Now you can look him all online.
Stanis Ivia is a contractor tasked to build 100 stalls around the main venues of the Games. The stalls are cheaper to rent and whoever has them will make a significant amount of money during the 2-week Games.
Lae is safe for you. Now, me bro, by support him. Now, look out him, you play. Safety blow, you play. When him game, you play, come to play him. You play by sit down good, you play by round good. Now, look him all. House market, blow me play long. Stadium or stall, blow me play. Kai by staff, or get something by staff.
The amount of money expected from the event isn't known, but the forecast looks promising for key stakeholders and those in the informal sector coming in to make profits. Members of the Lae City Council have been inspecting the stalls. The health department has been on site to ensure the stalls meet standards. When the PNG Games begin, the Morobe provincial coffers will have in the last several months be pumped full of revenue. Most of it attributed to the Morobe show and in 2 months, the National Games.
We can all see the value of the Games to Lae, to businesses in Lae, right from the grassroots sellers of drinks and buoy on the side of a road to the largest business who has their goods to promote, which they're promoting through the Games. So we're looking.
Lae City's growth has been attributed to its connections to the country's major port and the national highway. But where hard cash is more visible to the residents, it's during the major money-making events when buy and cold drink sellers and smaller merchants really make money. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lae.
While Papua New Guinea expects to face an economic boom over the next 5 years, rental accommodation has become unaffordable for average Papua New Guineans. While there has been a lot of talk about regulating the industry, very little has happened. MTV's Edwin Fidelis looks at the impacts that it's having on Lae residents amidst the economic boom in the province.
In the past decade, rental accommodations in Papua New Guinea has increased significantly, spurred by the country's growing economy and demand. Over the years, the real estate businesses have been redeveloping existing blocks to cater to the growing accommodation needs instead of building on new blocks. In places like Lae and Port Moresby, the shortage of land has driven up the rentals so high that it can only be afforded by the wealthy and big companies. The president of Lae's Chamber of Commerce, Alan Maclay, says accommodation businesses are now determined by the availability of land.
Your problem with real estate in Papua New Guinea is that there's a shortage of land. So in relation to Lae, just about all the vacant land, government land, is taken up.
In urban areas, most of the housing are provided by an active rental market owned by real estates. The prices are much higher and can't be afforded by an average Papua New Guinean worker. Most of them are pushed back to dwell in makeshift houses in settlements. Building more rental houses would require more land, and that would mean negotiating with landowners who, for the most part, may not be willing to give up their land.
With no available land, what the real estate industry is doing is redeveloping existing blocks. So blocks with a house on it are purchased and multiple units are built. And that is through necessity because there is a real need for rental accommodation.
Most of the affordable accommodations that can be found are those that are slowly crumbling. 2 months ago, we spoke to the occupants of YWCA hostel in Ley, who raised concerns on accommodation costs and their living conditions.
And this is our shower. And brook finish. One pla baluki mi pla waswas. Mi pla la pasi this lado and no pass.
The PNG government has come up with plans to reduce accommodation costs, but that may still be a long way off. While the country's economy continues to grow, the rental prices are also expected to grow with it. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Ley.
A filing clerk in the Morambe Provincial Lands Office has been sacked after it was found out that he signed off on a letter that led to the sale of the Papuan compound playing field in Ley. The termination happened several days after concerns were raised when residents heard that the field had been sold. The authorization letter was found within a thick document detailing ownership and development proposals by the new owner. It was handed over to the Lands Division as proof of ownership.
Bypassing all protocols, the filing clerk signed on behalf of the acting Provincial Lands Program Advisor in a letter addressed to the Secretary of Lands in Port Moresby. Senior provincial government officers explained that such a letter should have been written by the provincial administrator himself.
So when the documents came back from Port Moresby, we realized that this officer signed. In fact, he's got his signature on.
The letter dated 25th of March 2012 stated that an inspection was carried out at the Papua compound field and that during the inspection, the property was found to be vacant and undeveloped. That single document triggered the tendering process, which eventually led to the sale of the playing field.
So what he did was an important process which allowed for the bidding of the land to come on for bids.
2 weeks ago, Papuan compound residents held a public protest demanding answers from the Provincial Lands Division, with many accusing them of corruption and illegal land sales in Ley City. Investigations into other land dealings have also revealed that some land portions have dual titles, the original belonging to the provincial government and the other belonging to private individuals. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Over the last 3 years, the Bugandi Secondary School in Ley has been greatly affected with student violence within the school. Since the death of a student in 2011, the school's academic performance has significantly dropped. School authorities say while provincial authorities continue to neglect Bugandi, the future of its 300 grade 12 students will continue to be in danger.
Over the last 8 months, the Bugandi Secondary School has been in the limelight of school violence in Morambe Province. Classes have been suspended at various times as teachers try to deal with the issue. Despite this challenge and many others associated with cult-like activities, the school has struggled over time for one purpose, and that is to see students graduating at the end of every year.
For Bugandi, as compared to other schools, we still maintain the average that is acceptable.
While much of the blame has been leveled against the school's administration, the provincial authorities have fallen short in helping to solve Bugandi's ongoing problems. A school with more than 1,700 students It needs a total cooperation from the provincial government in putting more money towards rebuilding the school. The impacts of school violence have not only traumatized students, but have also affected students' selection to tertiary institutions around the country.
Before, some other schools now are being top, doing very well. They've never heard of, like what Bugandi used to be in the past. But the Morabians really have to change the attitude. The young Morabians now, we really have to change the attitude to bring back.
While this has been an ongoing problem, grade 12 students set for the examinations this week. They've adopted an optimistic attitude of moving forward in education despite the negativity. The Morobe Division of Education, the provincial government and other responsible authorities have miserably failed in addressing Bugandi's problem.
We have heard a lot of that there's so much money being pumped into education in the province, but you cannot see such money. You walk into Bugandi, you will hardly see any new buildings at Bugandi, no teachers' houses. And these are the buildings that were here when I was a student here myself.
Bugandi can no longer continue with its backlog of problems, as it may have a severe impact on students' learning. Its school-fight issues have to be addressed in due course if the government wants to see more students graduating to tertiary institutions. Sylvester Gawi, National EMTV News, Leh.
PNG Defence Force Brigadier General Gilbert Toropo today explained PNGDF's input to combat the potential impact of Ebola in the country, despite authorities downplaying the chances as slim. The draft of the PNG National Contingency Plan for Public Health Emergencies indicate the Defence Force as a combat agency during a health crisis. General Toropo also expressed his understanding of the need of a quarantine facility and is open for talks to establish one. Last week, health authorities discussed the need for quarantine protocols and infrastructure in compliance with World Health Organization guidelines at PNG's entry points. A national contingency plan was also released. In this plan, the Defence Force is required to assist in the containment of the disease, support disease surveillance, supply isolation wards and clinics, and provide logistical support for response activities.
We have a duty to support the all-of-government approach to ensure that the containment of Ebola is being addressed. Whether we provide manpower or whether we provide our health facilities to contain that, we have a duty to support the government.
At present, PNG is relying on Australia and parts of East Asia to provide information and quarantine measures on foreign passengers en route to PNG. General Toropo expressed the need for dialogue with health authorities to establish a quarantine facility.
I'm pretty sure that there will be forums that this message will come down at this stage. We will be open to discussions.
The Health Department has been tasked to locate an appropriate area for quarantine facilities, as hospitals around the country lack the required infrastructure under World Health Organization guidelines. The National Contingency Plan includes notable parties such as the Education Department, the National Disaster Center, Departments of Treasury and Finance, including Foreign Affairs and Immigration. Turning overseas now, U.S. authorities have announced its new guidelines for treating Ebola patients after 2 nurses contracted the deadly virus. The protocols relate to protective coverings worn by healthcare workers when treating infected patients.
After weeks of concerns and calls for change, the CDC now updating its protocols for healthcare workers treating Ebola patients. The new guidelines call for protective gear to leave no skin exposed, for hospital staff to get hands-on training for putting the gear on and taking it off, and for it all to be supervised by a trained monitor. While some at this Dallas hospital claim under the original guidelines, nurses had their necks exposed while treating Ebola victim Thomas Eric Duncan, the head of the CDC says we may never know how nurses Nina Pham and Amber Vinson contracted the virus.
But the bottom line is that the guidelines didn't work for that hospital.
Vincent's mother telling ABC's Robin Roberts it's concerning these updated protocols weren't in place sooner.
I'm so relieved that it's in place now. It should help ensure that no one has to endure what Amber and what Ms. Pham have had to go through.
Deborah Berry is one of the hundreds still being monitored for symptoms in Texas and Ohio, where Vincent traveled before she was diagnosed. She says Vincent is doing okay, getting great treatment at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. And as Pham continues her battle with Ebola in Maryland, a first look at what's left of the two nurses' homes after decontamination crews took almost everything out, putting their belongings in barrels, all removed and incinerated.
And that report concludes our news segment tonight. We've got sports coming up next. Lawn bowls, rugby union and soccer. We'll bring you those stories among True Guy Sports when we come back. Stay tuned.
True Guy Sports.
BSP PNG Games 2014. 24 days to go. Support your province.
The Defence Lawn Bowling Club in Port Moresby saw all its members play in a competition sponsored by one of its members, which included 1,800 kina and a luncheon. The competition brought out young and old to showcase their talent against each other in a skilled but friendly game. Part of the event was also to select the NCD and Central teams for the 6th BSP PNG Games.
Defence Lawn Bowl came alive as it turned white over the weekend under the scorching Port Moresby sun, where club members, young and old, filled the bowling green in their white uniforms to play and improve their skills. The competition was played in mixed fours that included all ages. Great camaraderie was shown between the young and old athletes as great skills and techniques were displayed as part of their preparations for the PNG Games. The players were made up of both NCD and Central. The game was also part of training for both Team Central and Team NCD athletes for the 6th BSP PNG Games. Team Central has 17 members, comprising of 7 girls, 6 boys and 4 officials, while Team NCD has 15 members of 5 ladies, 6 men and 4 officials for the PNG Games next month. Both teams are now waiting on their travel to Leh for the 6th BSP PNG Games in November. While some of the players concentrated on the game, for some it was a great time to play and share the fun with their friends and families, and at the same time teach the young ones on techniques of how to roll and angle the ball to get it as close as possible to the jack and kitty. Godwin Eki, National, EMTV Sports.
After a disappointing loss in last year's Malangan Sevens, the Pacific MMI Kimbe Rebels are in the final stages of preparations for the 2014 Malangan Sevens in Kavieng this weekend. Injured Pukpuk Henry Liliket will be making his comeback to rugby following his ankle injury earlier in the year whilst on national duties. The Kimbe Rebels are the strongest contenders for this year's Cup, having won the Kimbe Sevens, Brothers Sevens and the National Provincial Sevens with 2 losses under the belt from the Trans Highway Sevens in Leh and the recent SLS Cowboys Sevens. The team is looking to end the year on a high note with the Black Orchid Sevens. Madang will host the Youth Soccer Championship that will begin next month. The championship, sponsored by New Guinea Table Birds, aims to promote Papua New Guinea's future sports ambassadors in the code of soccer. In Madang, MTV's Fabian Hakalitz with this report.
The 4-day event will kick off from November 5 to 9, played in the under 15 and 18 women's and under 16 and 19 men's at Lywood Oval in Madang Town. It has attracted teams from as far as West New Britain, East Sepik and Morobe. The championship is also a new identification tool for the Papua New Guinea Football Association, says Tournament Director Sigi Bashel, to select young talented role players. Players will undergo 2 years intensive coaching.
Under 15 this year is identification, under 16 next is for selection, and then they'll represent, the players that are selected will represent Papua New Guinea in the Oceania Football Confederation tournaments.
Tracy Kick from Malin Soccer Club was selected as the women's under 15 coach. Had 20 years of experience in soccer, is capable to sharpen and brighten the young girls' talent and skills.
It's only I'm looking to work on the skills, ball skills, and to
put in some tactic in the game.
PNG's leading chicken manufacturing company, New Guinea Tablebirds, has come on board as the major sponsor as part of its ongoing community service to support and promote sports for children.
Tablebirds once again to come up again long come up major sponsor again long supporting more legally called youth play me or future generations play me long country now here plenty on major all centers too by come na participate to one time.
During the championship, New Guinea Tablebirds will also market and promote its products. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV Sports, Medang.
And in cricket, the PNG Barramundis crashed by 10 wickets to Northern Mavericks in their final two-day match of the South Australian Cricket Association campaign over the weekend. But yesterday bounced back to retain the 2020 title with a 2-run victory over Western Grits after finishing at the top of Pool B.
After winning the toss and opting to bat first, the Barramundis' top order batsmen struggled to secure runs against Northern Mavericks, with Asad Vala scoring 71 runs and Mahuru Dai 78, the only contributors to PNG's total of all out for 236 runs. In reply, former Australian batsmen Mark Cosgrove and Joshua Hoffman scored an opening partnership of 252 to pass the PNG total. The Mavericks decided to bat out day 2 and at the end of play scored a massive 8 down for 466 runs. Bowlers Charles Amini Jr. took 2 wickets while John Bogereva, Asad Vala and Vani Moria grabbed a wicket each. But yesterday was a thrilling T20 match. Vani Moria top scored with 41 runs followed by Lega Siaka with 21 and Asad Vala's 20 runs helped the Barras notch up 147 runs. The Barras defending 147 runs put on their best bowling performance on campaign. They applied pressure on the Grits batsmen, eventually ending their hopes, scoring 145 with 7 down at the end of 20 overs. Willie Guevara and Charles Amini Jr. grabbed 2 wickets each for the Barras to remain at the top of Pool B in the league and retain the South Australian Cricket Association T20 title. All players will return to their respective clubs in Australia and get together again to play their last match of the league on Friday the 12th of December. Scholar Sengi, National EMTV Sports.
Stay tuned, we'll bring you more action in True Kai Sports after these short messages.
True Kai Sports.
Good to have you back with True Kai Sports. The clock is ticking as we prepare to host the 15th Pacific Games in Port Moresby. Yesterday, National Planning and Monitoring Minister Charles Abel visited the recently opened High Performance Training Centre. He got schooled by PNG's top female athletes, Dika Toa and Toya Whistle.
As the national government prepares to table the national budget next week, so far the government has invested 1.2 billion kina on games infrastructure alone. The visit made by the National Planning and Monitoring Minister Charles Abel to the recently opened High Performance and Training Centre enlightened the government's commitment to back our stars of the day, the athletes, to push for gold in the 2015 Pacific Games. Minister Abel took a tour around the gym and was satisfied with what he saw. Under the PNG Olympic Committee Strategic Plan 2011 to 2015, the committee has been operating under the motto 2015 in Pursuit of Excellence, and this has adopted the vision of finishing on top of the medal tally at the 2015 Pacific Games. In order to fulfill that vision and perform to the expectations set on Team PNG, the committee, in partnership with the government through the Go for Gold program, set up this facility which provides vital services free of charge and easily accessible for Team PNG athletes. Minister Abel said to have his department and the 2015 Pacific Games Committee to work together setting up a healthy marketing strategy in line with the Pacific Games and the country's 40th anniversary celebration next year.
So it's quite a big program which is all about a smarter development approach, but it's about responsible development at all levels, from the top all the way down, and how we can all contribute to building Papua New Guinea is what it's about.
The funds provided through Go for Gold and Sports Enhancement Program come with a price tag, and that is to bring the country up to par in the medal tally. With the expert guidance of Sir John Dawanikura, Host Association, the PNG Olympic Committee was grateful for government support in the athletes' preparation phase.
And so, Minister, in forward planning, then we're just flagging the fact that we want to get this unit to the stadium. We've spoken to Honourable Minister as well as the Venue Infrastructure Committee.
Yes. Dikatoa, the 2014 Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and sprint queen Toya Whistle are the gold prospects for 2015 Pacific Games.
Yeah, we'll get Toya to race him.
I think you can stay like 10 meters in front of me, and then we can race.
Toa and Whistle led the minister to the workout. The excitement and adrenaline rush were indisputable as the duo took him through different training techniques. Whistle taught him tricks used on the tracks while Toa put to test a gold medal craft. Toya Whistle's main focus ahead of 2015 Pacific Games is the 2016 Rio Olympics. But now it's fun to be trained with the minister.
Yeah, we did. We did some stretches and...
He knows a lot of the workouts now, so what we have to do is just guide him through it.
Yeah, so we might be doing the wrong thing, we don't know. So it's nice to talk to the girls.
Tere Alex, National EMTV Sports.
And that wraps up True Kai Sports segment tonight. Coming up next, the weather details. Stay with us.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather information is proudly brought to you by Tablebirds.
The weather forecast for the next 24 hours in southern region, Port Moresby and Karama, evening showers, cloudy periods expected in Daru, overnight showers in Poponeta, and showers in Alata. Well, that's been National EMTV News this Wednesday, the 22nd of October 2014. I'm Tokana Hasavi. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay safe. Good night.